I'm Adam Susman, and on today's episode of Evergreen, we talk to Timbers defender Eric Miller. Miller takes us through his 6 stops across Major League Soccer, how he met his wife through the beautiful game, some stories of big-time players that he played with, and some fun stories off the pitch as well. It's going to be a great episode. Let's hop in. All right, Eric Miller, welcome to the Evergreen Podcast. So much to talk about with you. 6 stops, your Major League Soccer career. Yep. Let's start at the beginning here. Woodbury High School in Minnesota. Is that the best Minnesota high school program of all time? Because while you were there, your wife, Cassie, you, Gatorade Player of the Year, and Brett Coleman, your wife's brother and now brother-in-law, are all playing there at the same time. Was it just state title after state title?
No, we kept bottling it. I think I only made it to the state tournament one time. And Brett, my brother-in-law, who I played with, he had like a pretty bad back injury, so he couldn't really play at all. But there's actually 2 other guys that went to Creighton also, the Gotsmanoff brothers, Andre and Sergey, I believe, or Andre and Sasha, maybe their dad, Sergey. But the dad played for the USSR way back in the day, and they came over and they were way better than me and Brett. They were unbelievably good. I think they both got injured when they were either in college or at some point after, but they were unbelievable too. Yeah.
So you were Gatorade Player of the Year. Your wife, Cassie, was Gatorade Player of the Year as well. How did you guys meet?
We met through my brother-in-law, Brent. When I started playing high school soccer, I was too young to drive a car. So he would pick me up and drive me to training because we kind of knew each other from playing for the same club team. So Brent was driving me to trainings through that, ended up meeting Cassie. Spent a lot of time at the Coleman household, got to know Cassie, and the rest is history, you know?
So she goes to Florida State. I believe she's a school year older than you.
Yep.
If Florida State has a men's soccer team, are you going to FSU?
Ooh, I don't know. We were talking the other day about how good some of those schools would be. The Texases, the Florida States, the Floridas, if they have men's soccer. But I don't know, honestly. Cassie was almost went to the University of Minnesota because her 2 sisters were playing there for the Gophers at the time. She actually told them that she was going to go there, and then they said, no, you're not. You need to go play at the best school you can possibly. So she ended up going to Florida State, which is awesome. We were just looking up her page the other day. She was unbelievable. I kind of forget sometimes how good she was. I think she was 2-time All-American, academic All-American, all that stuff. So she was a serious player.
So then how'd you end up in Omaha?
I ended up in Omaha because I actually went to a camp there with some of my buddies in the summer of I think that was between my sophomore and junior year of high school. And then I just kind of liked it. I liked the vibe a lot. I looked at some other schools. Brent was already there. So there was like a real like comfort factor of just like having someone, you know. It was also relatively close to home versus some of the other places I was looking. So I knew my parents could catch a lot of games, which is good. I think it's like a 6.5 hour drive to Omaha from Minneapolis. So they came down for a lot of games, and I just felt good there. I felt comfortable. I liked all the coaches a lot. There was actually 3 different coaches before I got there because they were on a little bit of guys just wanted to go to different places and all different stuff, how it goes. So I was bummed to not play for the other 2 guys who recruited me, but it ended up being a great situation when Almar showed up, and he was a great college soccer coach, so it was good.
Do you know how many hours on pitch it took for you to give up your first goal? In college, yeah.
I know we only gave up 5 goals, I think, my freshman year, like 23 games, because that was a record at the time. I don't know if it still is.
24 games played, 19 clean sheets. It took you 12 hours on the pitch to give up your first goal.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, we had a lot of really, obviously, it wasn't because of me. We had a lot of other really good players. I have a distinct memory of at one point we were doing one of those like very classic 6 attackers for sport defenders drills. It was Omaha in the afternoon when you train for college, right? And we were running this drill, and I was like, okay, when you guys score, training is over. And it went on like 20 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. We had to have the GA go up and turn the lights on because it started to get dark out. And eventually the team scored. But I just remember we had a lot of really, really good defenders and players on that team. I learned a lot. It was very, very fun to play with those guys.
You guys went 21-2-1 after your freshman season. You're thinking the soccer thing's pretty easy?
No, honestly, I didn't think I was gonna be a professional soccer player. I never really thought that was like a thing that people did. It's not where I like grew up. Like there wasn't just like guys that went pro, and obviously MLS is a very different league at the time. So it wasn't really until my freshman year where I was like around all these other guys who were professional or on the path to becoming pros, and I was like, whoa, like I'm not that far away. Like maybe someday this is a possibility. But I was really fortunate to go to Creighton. I learned so much from the staff, a lot of the older guys. Ethan Finley was one of the biggest guys when I was there. And I just learned a lot about how to show up every day, how to compete, and how to just do things the right way, which I really, really appreciated.
So what was that first sign that, hey, maybe I can do this professionally?
It was my assistant, Johnny Torres, who's now the head coach. We used to have like individual stuff you'd go out before. They call it like IDP now, but back then it was just like going to work on your game or whatever. But I was out there before with a guy named Tyler Polak, who also played professionally, who was like U17 African captain, amazing player. And we were just doing these like fullback exercises. Like halfway through it, Johnny was like, you know what? You keep working on this stuff, you could be a good pro someday. And that was the first time I was like, holy, not a word that I could probably say in the podcast, but maybe this is possible, you know? And then slowly improved and grew from there. And again, I was super fortunate that Johnny, Elmore, all those guys really developed my game and helped me become a much better player than I was when I got there.
It might be a little bit different now in 2024 with social media. You can get in contact with anybody. But how does the USA U20 come on your radar when you're that young in 2011?
So I think it was an email you get. So I think somehow they get an email. It's like blasted out, hey, you're in the pool for, I think we had a camp after my freshman fall. So again, I was super lucky. My team was very, very good. We made the Final Four. I think we should have won the national championship, but we choked pretty hard in the semifinal. And then I think I just popped up on some radars as a younger guy that was playing a lot of games. And then I just was, again, pretty fortunate to be part of that whole cycle. And it started off, I think, again, that like January, I think they had a pretty big camp with a bunch of guys, did okay. Then there's slowly more and more tournaments, more camps, all the different stuff, which was amazing experience for me, honestly.
So suddenly you blink, you're going from a suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota, to you're in Turkey for the U20 World Cup. Was that your first time overseas? And what do you remember about that experience?
I'd been overseas a couple of times with the, like we had those like region 2 teams back in the day. For people that know about ODP. That was like a big deal to make your regional team, your state team, whatever it was. So I don't know how they were affording these trips, but we went to some pretty cool, awesome places when I was a kid. And then, yeah, throughout the entire cycle, we did some really cool trips, played some cool teams. Kind of, I think, did a bunch of different stuff in Toulon. I think we played a couple teams in Brazil at one point, I think, which was super cool. And then, yeah, we were at the U20 World Cup, which was crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know if you looked up the rosters at all.
Yeah, I think it was France, Spain, and Ghana.
Yeah. So Spain was the reigning U19 Euro champion. France was the third place team at U19 Euro. They ended up winning it all. And then Ghana was probably the best team we played. They were unbelievable. But there were some, if you look at the roster, some unbelievable players. Jesse Rodriguez, Suso, Delfeo was on the team, and these guys were so good. But it was a great experience, really fun. I think Pogba was on France. Pogba was on France. They had some other guys on that French team that were incredible. So that was really cool. Yeah, just kind of getting to see the really top level and what it was like was, yeah.
I'll give you a prize if you can name the mascot from that tournament.
It's like a little dog.
Yeah, you're right. It was a blue-eyed Kangal puppy named Kanky.
Kanky.
So, was there a certain player's performance that really stuck out to you in that U20 World Cup?
I thought Suso was unbelievable. And Jesse Rodriguez was really, them and Delfeo too. I remember we played that Spain team, and that was like the golden age of Spain, right? They were coming off winning the World Cup and the Euros and whatever, and they kind of played a little different style. It was a little more like counter-attacking, but they were unbelievably good. And obviously, it was really cool because you play, and I think we played Galatasaray Stadium, so that was a really, really cool stadium that they had built. So, yeah, it was amazing.
So over the summer at Creighton, you were here. You were playing Timbers U23. Was that, hey, the Timbers are a fresh start MLS team, I want to be over there, or was this really one of your only options?
I don't really know, honestly. So basically, I was like, back then, for people that don't know, you played PDL. That was like what you did in the summer. And obviously there was back then a lot more people playing college soccer for longer. So like, for example, that team I played with my freshman year, I think we had 6 guys, maybe 5 guys get drafted. And like, they like played right away in MLS because there was no homegrowns. There was only a couple generations kids a year. So it was just kind of a different landscape and you had to find somewhere to play in the summer. And so guys went home, or there was guys who had to play for Chicago Fire. I don't know what the connection was, but we used to always send a couple Creighton guys out. And so, so we loaded up a car. We drove from Omaha to Portland, which is 26 hours. We were poor college kids, so we didn't stop. We would take turns driving. So I believe whoever's car we drove had like 4-hour gas tanks. So you would drive 4 hours. You would go passenger seat with co-pilot, person driving for 4 hours. Then you would sleep for 4 hours. And we just cycled through that until we made it to Portland.
What was the coolest thing you drove past?
Oh man, you drive through a lot of cool stuff. You drive through all the Rockies, which is really cool. I will say I felt like I was going to die at some point with some of my teammates driving through the Rockies, a little bit aggressive on some of the turns, but we ended up making it safe and sound, which is good. And then, I don't really know why we ended up coming out here, what the connection was, but it was great. And obviously for us, we were like jumping at the opportunity to be an MLS organization, to kind of be in that environment, especially for me, someone that had never been anywhere near that in my time. I was at the very tail end of the development academy, but we weren't. Minnesota United didn't exist, I don't think, at the time. It was probably the Thunder or the Stars back then. It was like I couldn't get here fast enough to be like me or an MLS organization.
What do you remember off the pitch of your summers in Portland?
We had 6 guys living in a 2-bedroom apartment, which was really fun. And again, just, very college, very fun. We, I believe, had to wake up early because we trained out there in the turf before the first team, and we had to be out before the first team. And so I think we trained at like 7 a.m., which was very early for college kids. And then I have a very distinct memory of us all, like 6 dudes, just watching a lot of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was like just coming out, and we like all got really into it. So we did a lot of that. We played a lot of frisbee golf. We just explored Portland, man. It was really fun. Did a lot of cool hiking. It was a blast.
I'm going to fast forward a few months here. 2014 MLS Super Draft is January 16th. Your birthday is January 15th. Yeah. Your 21st birthday was the day before the draft. What was consumption like?
It was horrible, honestly. For a 21st birthday, it was very low key. I went out with some of the guys who were Generation Adidas, or guys I knew from national teams or stuff that were at the draft. I don't know if they still do, but they used to fly a bunch of people after the drafts, and you'd do a speech for everyone to get drafted. But no, like half the people didn't know it was my birthday. I'm a pretty low key birthday guy, so it was pretty underwhelming, to be honest. But I had enough fun when I was a grade, so I feel okay about it.
Did you know you were going to Montreal in that draft?
I had no idea, honestly. This is like, I don't know how it works really anymore, but you're always hearing, oh, this team's interested, that team's interested. I played reasonably well at the combine, so I think I kind of maybe shot up some boards more than people thought. I think San Jose or Seattle had like the 8th pick, and I kind of was like pretty convinced I'm going to go there if I make the 8th pick. Montreal kind of made some trades, moved up, I believe, and then selected me. I couldn't have found Montreal on a map before this, so I didn't really know what to think or anything. Frank Klopas, the coach at the time, was amazing. The front office guys were super nice, so I was super excited, but I didn't know anything about Montreal or the organization. Honestly, at that time, it was just kind of hard to watch MLS. I didn't really know as much about the league as you do now.
So who were some of the names that helped you when you first got there?
I would say the biggest ones for me, there's a guy named Heath Pierce who does Apple stuff now. I don't think he has any idea how much he helped me out, but just having like a really experienced American guy that was a defender was invaluable. And it was kind of a chaotic season. We struggled in a lot of ways, and just kind of have a guy explaining some of the things to you, breaking it down. He played in Bundesliga, he's a ton of caps on the national team. So having a guy that I kind of looked up to, walking me through stuff, showing me what being a professional looked like was great. Evan Bush is another one. He was a goalie there at the time. Callum Malice, who's a Minnesota guy who was there, played college soccer too. So I was really fortunate, had some older guys that looked out for me and kind of showed me the ropes of what it looked like to become a professional soccer player.
Remember who you played on your debut?
Played Dallas.
Yeah.
I almost scored like 12 minutes in. It was like cursed me for not being able to score for 11 years, but I don't remember who would have been on that team.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was a 3-2 loss. I mean, you gave up over half your goals in one MLS game than you did an entire year at Creighton. And then you're thinking the soccer thing might be a little bit hard. But
there's some better players maybe in MLS than the Missouri Valley. That's something pretty fun.
He didn't come until your second season there. But what was it like playing with Didier Drogba?
It was amazing. Amazing guy. Like, true. Everyone says that, but he's like such a cool, great guy. Like, I remember. This is the very funny thing, but we hung out a lot or whatever. He's a great dude. And then like I left the team, and like the next year, January is my birthday. He like texted me happy birthday. Like after I was gone, I was like, man, what a great guy that like Didier Drogba like remembers me and like remembers to text me that's my birthday. So still don't get the birthday text anymore. I don't know if Didier maybe he has a new number, maybe he lost mine, but yeah, he was a great guy. I remember one of our first games there, his visa hadn't cleared or whatever, so he wasn't like available, and we were losing at halftime, and he was like watching a suite or whatever. He came down into the locker room and was like having a go with different guys. I was like, guys, it's super important. when he won this game and was like kind of like pumping everyone up. And I was like, wow, this guy is like, because I think the unfortunate reality is some of those guys come over and they're just hanging out. They're getting a last big contract, but that was not the case at all with Didier. He was there to work. He was there to win. It was really cool to see firsthand. He was unbelievably good at soccer, and he could do everything. His feet were amazing. He was so smart. He was so big. His finishing was great. I mean, it was like just to watch a guy like that you grew up watching as a kid on Champions League and all these different World Cups, forever. It was so cool to see live every day.
Maybe on the opposite end of Drogba, did you remember a young Maxime Crépeau or James Pantemis in the Montreal Academy?
Yeah, I've known those guys forever. Max Crépeau is he was like probably the third goalie at the time. I don't know, just like a young academy kid making his way through. But I was really close with some of the younger like homegirls, like a Max Tissot that were around. Carl, we met, so I hung out with the Quebecois guys a lot. They were great guys, kind of showing me the ropes of Montreal. And then Max as well. It was great to like have just these guys from the local area to kind of show you what the culture was about, what all these different, because Montreal is such a unique place in terms of language and culture and food and just the way the city is, that it was great to have some guys that were from there to kind of show me the ropes.
So you're traded in February 2016, first time in your career. Was that tough for you?
Yes and no. I wanted to leave, to be honest. The second season I was in Montreal, I wasn't playing a lot. And so I kind of was like, my first year I played a ton, second year I didn't play as much. I kind of wanted to keep the momentum going of playing. And so I was kind of looking to move, and I didn't know where that was going to be. It was kind of unfortunate because at the time, Cassie, my wife, was playing in Boston. So that was like the closest we had lived in a long time. That was like 5-hour drive. So on off weekends, we could go up and down. She would say she drove up a lot more than I drove down, but we could see each other a lot more than we had been. So that was great. And then it was kind of a shock. Yeah, it was. I think I went to the January camp maybe, and then got traded right after that because I don't think I was there for most preseason. And then I was back for like 2 days and then shipped out that before. So yeah.
Colorado, I mean, you had to take to it pretty quick. You were an on-field starter right away. Was it just kind of love at first sight?
It was great, honestly. Again, it was I'm very lucky. I've played with a lot of great guys. That was like a very experienced, very fun locker room to be a part of. There was a lot of veterans that have been around MLS forever. Really experienced team and just a fun team to be part of, to be honest. A lot of guys that just had really good stories about like the Wild West days at MLS. So for me, like I was still young at the time. I was only 3 years in. It was just fun to hear all these crazy stories from Bob Burling and Sam Cronin about like the Bash Brothers quakes and stuff like that. So it was a very easy group to like fit in with and quickly adapt to. They also just had like a pretty big positional need at right back. So I just kind of slotted in right away and yeah, ran with it.
Tim Howard ever just let you have one? Never reel you out?
Sometimes, yeah, but never not deserved. So that was good. He was a great guy, honestly. And again, very lucky to have gotten to play with him. He's amazing goalie, but again, a really, really good guy, really competitive, really wants to win. My locker was right next to his, so just kind of just absorbing every day stuff from him. He was amazing guy to have around, and just especially at that time in the Raptors organization was really good to just kind of have them lift everything up and really bring us forward.
Your only MLS goal is with the Portland Timbers, but your only MLS red card was with Colorado. Do you remember how it happened?
I do. I took a bad touch and I absolutely went over the ball with somebody in Vancouver. Alan Chapman gave me a red card. It's probably deserved. And then we either were up in the game and they tied it, and then we won late, so I didn't feel quite as bad.
It was 1-1 when you had a late challenge on Pedro Morales, a Chilean.
Yep.
Played many times for the national team. I thought it was a yellow, not a straight red. Maybe VAR today's game.
Probably an orange.
But you guys were 1-1 when you went off like the 70th and it ended up 2-2. So
2-2. We scored a late goal, I think.
Guys aren't gonna reel you out too much.
Not too bad. Pablo definitely put me in timeout for I think a couple games after, but then I was able to play a little bit again.
Well, next on the docket is Minnesota United, May 2018 to July 2019. Did you live at home at all?
I actually lived with the in-laws.
Ooh.
Yeah. We were holding it down in the basement at the in-laws for a while, which was great. They've had a bunch of their kids live there at various times. They're like moving home or building houses. So that was good. Then we also lived with my brother-in-law briefly because my in-laws were Airbnb-ing their house. So then we moved there. Never stayed with my parents for too long because they had a cat at the time. And cats and dogs were going to butt heads, unfortunately.
So what was it like playing with your brother-in-law now for the third time?
It was super cool. I played with Ethan too, so that was another really cool place. So I played high school, college, and professional soccer with Brent. And then me and Ethan played college and professional together, which was amazing. Just cool to be around family in that environment. I think that's like a very, aside from just being related, me and Brett are very, very close. So I think I'm like lucky in that aspect that my brother-in-law is also like one of my extremely good friends. So I was super, again, fortunate to have that opportunity. And it was really cool for us to just like represent Minnesota and to be Minnesotans playing for Minnesota United.
Did you support an MLS side growing up? Because Minnesota, the Loons were not an MLS side. I think you got there, it was only their second, third season. So did it feel kind of like you were representing your boyhood club, even though it didn't exist when you were a boy?
So technically, it is the same club the whole time. So I believe the Thunder became owned by, I want to say NASL at the time. They became the Stars. Then Dr. McGuire bought them, turned them into Minnesota United, and then that became MLS Minnesota. And so in some ways, it was like the same version of the club that I grew up watching and playing in Minnesota with like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people back in the day. So it was really cool in that aspect. It's really cool as a Minnesotan to just like see professional soccer there, because at that level, like first division with 25,000 people they get now, because I just didn't think that was ever a reality. But the growth of MLS, the growth of the league has been really cool to watch. And I think a lot of places are this way, but I think especially in Minnesota, people are very proud of being Minnesotan and they want to support Minnesotan people, and they're very happy at times someone comes to the academy. So I felt really appreciated there, and I know people there are just proud to see Minnesotans playing at a high level.
Did you ever play poker with Brent? That's a big thing on his Wikipedia, that he's a professional poker player.
Yeah, he's made some good money playing poker over the years. He's won a couple tournaments, so I stay away as much as I can.
All right, I asked you if you were bummed when you left Montreal. Are you a little bit more bummed when you left Minnesota going to New York?
Again, not super. I mean, the unfortunate reality of being a professional soccer player is like, I thought what Minnesota United was going to be was a very different experience than what it was. Like, I just didn't play that much. I wasn't a very big part of the team. At the end, I wasn't even making the bench. And so if you want to keep playing soccer, you got to be involved. And I wanted to keep playing. And so I was trying to find a place to go. I was initially pretty hesitant about the New York thing because it was kind of sold as like a pretty temporary thing. So Joe Scally, who was a very young kid at the time and is now a younger man playing in Bundesliga and a very good player, had a hip issue of some sort. I don't remember. It was pretty long term. So I think he missed most of the year. And they had a guy named Anton Tinnerholm, who was one of the best right backs in MLS at the time. But he had played every minute of every game. And they were MLS Cup contender. They wanted to make sure they kind of filled all the holes in their roster. And they were basically like, had a crazy amount of games in the last, I think I was only there for like 4 months.
Yeah, you played 5 games.
Yeah, they had a bunch of midweek games, they had a bunch of these different things that they were like, look, we need someone to like give Anton some rest. We think we can win MLS Cup, but like we don't want, if Anton gets hurt, we don't know what's going to happen. And so and then Joe was going to come back the next year, and I kind of knew I wasn't going to be needed anymore. So I initially was like, I don't know. And then I was like, I'm not playing here. This is an incredibly good team. It's going to be another really cool life experience. I might as well check it out. And it ended up being, honestly, a fantastic soccer experience. Dome was such a good coach. I learned so much in 4 months. And we choked in the playoffs, but it was probably the best team I've ever played for. The last couple of months, we were unbelievable. We just kind of ran through the East. And I don't know if we were the 1 seed, but we were probably pretty close. And it's unfortunate because we were crazy talented to not go farthest to play.
And I probably shouldn't ask you this as a Portland Timbers player now, but being there in 2019, you can kind of see the building blocks of what 2021 became.
Yes, definitely. And honestly, I think you see it in all different sports, whether it's NBA or whatever. There's kind of some playoff failures that I think you have to experience as a group before you can find the mountaintop. And I think that was like their big playoff failure of like, they kind of got the wake up call of what playing in the playoffs looks like, how it's a little different for the regular season. And I think they just got some of that experience that ended up being very valuable, unfortunately, for the Timbers.
I feel like 99% of the people listening to this probably don't know what the MLS re-entry draft is. So can you explain to people how that process works and how you ended up in Nashville?
So the MLS re-entry draft is what happens when the team calls you and tells you, we're going to decline your option, but you're not in the league long enough to get free agency. So honestly, I really appreciate it from New York in terms of they knew they had Joe coming back and still had Anton. There was no need for me to be in the squad. And I think basically they were like, we could pick you up and try to trade you. We're not going to get very much. So we might as well just decline our option. You can have an easier path to get out. So I really appreciate that from David and Claudio at the time. And then basically, so if you get your option declined, you're still MLS's property in some aspects. And then you go through the re-entry draft, which is teams round 1. if they draft you, they have to pick up your option. In round 2, I believe they just take your rights and they have to make you an offer within a week or so for some amount. But that's how I ended up in Nashville. I got re-entry drafted, which is it's a little blow to the ego, but you gotta figure it out.
Do you know what record your team, not you specifically, achieved in Nashville?
No idea.
Most draws
I do know that
in a season.
Yeah, we actually just talked about that the other day. I think we had how many is it? Do you know? 17?
18.
18, yeah.
Joint most draws of all time. You guys lost 4 games and a plus 22 goal differential.
Yeah.
Was there ever conversations in the locker room saying, hey, we got to win some of these?
I think in some aspects, yeah, because obviously 3 points. So if you're drawing 3 versus if you try to win 1, it's obviously the math works out that you would be better off if you were trying to win more of these games. But I think that was just the reality of a lot of those Nashville teams has been super solid defensively, not as much going forward, and just kind of playing in those really tight games where it's either 0-0 or 1-1 and just not blowing things wide open ever. So I think especially with being an expansion team and being kind of early on, we were very cautious. That was kind of the players they recruited. We were very sound defensively, and just the style of play. And obviously I think we made the playoffs every year, had a couple of nice runs in Open Cup, wherever. They obviously had the nice run in the Leagues Cup last year. So I think it's not a horrible way to play. You just end up with some of those years where things don't bounce right and you got 18 ties.
Did you know with Hani Mukhtar right away?
Yes. Hani's it's an interesting one too, because I think a lot of times people don't remember, but his first year he wasn't the Hani Mukhtar that he was the last couple of years. And he was still a great player. He still put up some nice numbers, but he was very much adapting to MLS. That was the COVID year too. So there was a lot of different struggles for everybody, whether it's on the field, off the field, trying to just work through all that stuff. But same with Nacho Piatti. When I played with him, there was an adjustment period. I think sometimes people forget that some of these players need 6 months, a year to adapt, and then they can really. Hani's as good as it gets in MLS now, right? It's MVP, just get Golden Boot every year almost. So I think having guys like that, you just need to give that a little bit of time sometimes, and then they become the Hani Mukhtars that they become.
Is it true that you named your daughter after a restaurant in Nashville?
That is true. How'd you know that?
Some birdies told me.
Yeah. So the story is, again, my wife's version versus my version, but her version is basically there's this restaurant we used to love to go to in our neighborhood in East Nashville called Margot. And Cassie's pregnant. We had a couple of names that we liked, none of them that we really loved. And after we ate there, this is really good. And my wife said, what do you think about the name Margot? And I was like, I love it. She's like, do you think that's weird? And I was like, no, I think it's a great name. I think that's what we should go with. And so now she's Margot. And we got to take her to Margot this last offseason, which was very fun. Margot in Margot. So hopefully she can go there one day when she's a little older and remember it. But yeah, it was cool in that aspect. It's such a great restaurant too. If anyone ever makes that to Nashville, it's awesome neighborhood, great restaurant. So yeah.
Well, Nashville was your longest duration with the club. Portland, you're getting there kind of close. You got
it's not that hard. I just got to stick around for 18 months, and I'm starting to get close.
But the difference with Portland was it was my first year being a full-time host, and you weren't with the team game 1. Was it kind of strange coming in once the season already started?
I was with the team.
I don't think you played the first game.
Oh, I didn't play.
You weren't there in preseason at all.
No, I wasn't there. I actually signed. I was in preseason with Nashville actually, because I couldn't find a team. To be honest, and then Gary was nice enough to let me train and stay around the guys, which was great. And then Portland called me. I think that must have been a Sunday. Then I flew out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and that was the day that there was that crazy snowstorm. And it took me 3 hours to get from the airport to downtown. It was just insane. Me and my Uber driver were pushing cars up a hill, just really tapping into my Minnesota roots, trying to help these Portland people move on some icy roads. But it was crazy. And then we were delayed and we didn't come in for 3 days because the roads were so bad. So I was just sitting in a hotel downtown for 3 days. And then what day did we play? Monday or Sunday?
Yeah, the game was supposed to be Saturday. I think it got moved to Monday.
So yeah, I didn't see anyone. And I was calling our trainer Westy, trying to figure out am I going to do physicals, calling our admin, trying to figure out how to become part of the team and figure all this stuff out. Yeah, it was strange. I'd done it a little bit in Colorado where you're not with the team for preseason. I came, I think, just to the last 2 weeks to Colorado, and honestly, it's difficult because you build a lot of relationships in preseason. I think people underrate that aspect of it. You just go spend a lot of time with the guys, and you're just in Tucson or Phoenix or LA or Palm Springs, and you're just spending a ton of time and getting close to people and building a lot of relationships that when you just show up and the Wednesday before the game on Monday, you don't have that time. And so a lot of it was just trying to like figure out the group, adapt. And obviously we also, my wife was 37 weeks pregnant when we signed her. So we had a lot of off-field stuff that we were figuring out in a very good way. So it was a very hectic, probably 6-8 weeks there.
Yeah. Who were some of the names on the Portland side that kind of ingratiated you?
So I knew Bingham a little bit from the January camp I went to way back in the day. That was when he was in the national picture and I was with the 23s. So I knew him a little bit and that was about it. I mean, it's for people that don't know, there's just, I think me and Bingham that had played for other MLS teams last year. And these guys always make fun of me because I know everyone in MLS, whether it's some PA stuff or I played on every team. So it's like we're in Palm Springs and people are walking by and I know 20 guys on each team and I'm talking to everyone. So this was like probably the team where I knew the fewest people. Obviously knew about a lot of the players from playing against them and stuff, but just didn't know them personally. So that took a little while as well. And especially coming from a team like Nashville that was all veteran American guys or veteran MLS guys who have been around, it was a very different environment. So trying to kind of figure out the group and find my place in it took a little while for sure.
Is it nice to be 7 years younger than the oldest player on the team?
Yeah, but the problem is he makes us all look older than him every day. You know, the guy's moving around out there like crazy. So it's nice to have some older guys. And obviously just watching him every day is a joy to see the professionalism, the work ethic, all the different stuff. He is like one of those guys too that is so much better of a person than he is as a player. He's just the best guy. He's a great person to have around and just an awesome teammate to have. And I'm very, very lucky to have gotten the opportunity to play with him.
How much different does a 31-year-old Eric Miller feel the day after a game than when a 21-year-old Eric Miller played with Timbers U23?
Oh, man. 31-year-old Eric feels different, but he doesn't have to take the 15-passenger vans up and down the I-5 or on Pacific Northwest, so maybe that helps a little bit. We probably didn't have the greatest travel conditions, I would say, for PDL, so some of that stuff I probably feel a little better about. I would say 21-year-old Eric was maybe having a little more fun after the games, too, than 31-year-old Eric. You know, 31-year-old Eric's lifestyle is a little different. He's probably not out at the bars as much as 21-year-old Eric was.
3 weeks ago now, you scored your first career Major League Soccer goal. Did you get more texts saying congratulations or more texts saying, wow, you never scored a goal in 185 games?
A little bit of both, honestly. A lot of people were surprised. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Probably a bad thing, but I got a lot of texts, a lot of people just around the league. Again, I've played everywhere. I know everyone, so it's nice to hear from different people you haven't talked to in a while. I was joking, but I think I got more texts about the goal than about the baby. So that was a little bit of my friends and my old teammates might need to step it up a bit. But yeah, it was good. Obviously, got the monkey out the back. Yeah.
We ran through all your stops. So I want to take a few more career retrospective questions here. Toughest man to mark through your seasons in Major League Soccer?
Honestly, there's a guy named Edgar Castillo that used to play for FC Dallas who was absolutely rapid. And I thought he was an unbelievable player. Popped my hammy once, chased him down in a game, so that's probably one of the reasons why. But I think I was a younger guy too, so I was kind of getting up to speed in MLS. Those Dallas teams are really good too. They had Mauro Diaz and him, and yeah, he was unbelievably good. I think he's maybe a guy that people don't think about as much, but he was a really, really good player in his time.
In 10, 15 years, when your daughter asks, Dad, how good were you? Which game are you putting on TV to show her?
Oh, man. The best game I probably ever played in MLS was against the Philadelphia Union away at Philly in the 2022 playoffs? Yeah, it would have been 2022. Or maybe it was 21. I came here in 23, so it would have been 21. Yeah. It was 21. I played wingback. I got an assist. I just had a good game overall. Then we ended up losing in penalties, which was a bummer because that Philly team got COVID, and New York beat them, and then New York in the final. That was a national team. That national team I think is pretty underrated. We were very close to getting over the hump, and we just couldn't do it.
What on-field trait would you most want to steal from your wife?
A lot, man. She was a player. Number one, maybe being left-footed. And number two, I think she just has like a fantastic mentality. She was hard as nails, super competitive, really good leader. I think like she was a good athlete and had good feet, but like from in here was unbelievably good. Yeah.
Does she kind of pick apart your game after your performance?
Yeah, I always tell people it's like the really good and bad part of having a professional soccer player wife is that she knows a lot about what you're doing, and she's like maybe sometimes like I'll just leave him alone, but she also knows exactly when you did poorly, when you did well. She wants to talk about plays sometimes, and it's like It's really good, and I'm very lucky. And again, I think the most important thing is she really understands like the lifestyle of like she played for 3 teams in 4 years. I played for a lot of teams. She gets to move around and all that stuff. So sometimes though, you just want to be like, hey, just I wish you didn't know how poorly I played or something like that. But that's the reality of the situation, you know.
What's your favorite rivalry you played in that is in Portland, Seattle?
Ooh, great question. So I got 2. I think the Montreal-Toronto one is super underrated, and especially with how much they play. So my second year, I think we played them 6 times because we played them 3 MLS, 2 legs of the Canadian Cup, and then in the playoffs. And we had like, it's like the NBA and NHL, right? Where if you just play someone that much, you're just not going to like the other guys because you just kicked each other and all that different stuff. So that one is really good. And especially over the years, I feel like they've had some really good playoff moments. And then when I was in Nashville, us in Orlando was a really fun one because we had some playoff games. We had some really, that Orlando team is just, they're tough to play against. They fight hard. That Nashville team fights hard. So we had a really good little, that's maybe not as like geographic of one, but that was some huge games that were really, really fun to play in.
All right, last question for you, Eric. Your LinkedIn says twilight of your career, which I don't believe. Maybe you.
I don't know if you've been watching. I think it's been twilighty.
But what's next for you? Obviously, you've done a lot throughout your career. MLS executive board. You've done off the field as well with the playing for Pride. What's the next stage of your career look like?
It's $1 million question for anyone that plays for a while. I think it's the hardest thing to figure out is you've done this thing since you were 3 or 4 years old. What's next? And I think it's really, really difficult for guys. It's one thing I think with the PA we're really trying to help guys out with in terms of what does that transition look like and how does it become more smooth for guys to figure out their passion, be able to support their families and whatever that may be. So for me, I would love to be involved in soccer. I love the game an incredible amount. I've had a lot of really different experiences, whether that's with the PA, playing for a bunch of different teams. I don't know what exactly that looks like, but I just really, really love the game. And I can't imagine not being around it every day. And the game truly has given me so much in terms of that's how I met my wife, this wonderful life that I've gotten to live that I would love to be able to give something back to it.
Eric, good luck the remainder of the season. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.